The bell. People heard a special sound in a big town. It was like a church bell, but it only lasted a moment. Cars and people made too much noise. Outside the town, where houses were not so close, people heard the bell better. It sounded like it came from a church in the quiet forest. People looked and felt peaceful. Time passed. People wondered, is there a church in the wood? The bell sounds so sweet. Let's go see. Rich people drove and poor people walked. The way seemed long. They sat near some trees at the edge of the forest. They thought they were deep in the woods. A person who sold candy came and set up a shop. Another candy seller came and had a bell. It was for decoration and had no clapper. It was covered to keep it dry. When everyone went home, they said it was romantic, not like a picnic. 3 people said they went to the end of the forest. They said they heard the bell, but it sounded like it came from the town. One person wrote a poem. He said the bell sounded like a mother's voice to her child. He said it was the sweetest sound. The king heard about it too. He said the person who found the sound would be called Universal Bell Ringer. Many people went to the wood to find the sound. Only one person came back with an idea. He said the sound came from a big owl in a hollow tree. He said the owl hit its head on the branches. But no one knew if the sound came from the owl's head or the tree. So, he became the Universal Bell Ringer. He wrote about the owl every year. But everyone still didn't know the truth. It was a special day for some children. A priest spoke, and the children felt very touched. They were becoming adults. The sun was bright. The children left the town. They heard the bell from the wood very clearly. They all wanted to go to the wood, except 3. One girl had to try on a dress for a party. Another boy had to return a coat and boots he borrowed. The 3rd boy said he would not go to a new place without his parents. He said he was always good and would stay good. The others laughed at him. So, 3 did not go. The others went quickly. The sun shone, birds sang, and the children sang too. They held hands. They were all equal. But 2 of the youngest children got tired and went back to town. 2 little girls sat down and made flower chains, so they did not go either. When the others got to the willow tree where the candy seller was, they said, "We are here. The bell is not real. It is just in our minds." At that moment, the bell sounded deep in the wood. It was clear and solemn. 5 or 6 people decided to go deeper. The wood was thick and the trees were close. It was hard to walk. Flowers and bushes grew high. Nightingales sang and the sun shone. It was beautiful, but not a good place for girls because their clothes would get torn. Big rocks covered with moss were there. A fresh spring made a strange sound. "That cannot be the bell," said one child. He lay down and listened. "I need to check this." He stayed and the others went on. They came to a small house made of branches and tree bark. A wild apple tree was over it, like it was giving good luck. Roses grew on the roof. Long stems wrapped around the house. A small bell hung there. Was this the bell people heard? Everyone agreed, except one person. He said the bell was too small to be heard from far away. He also said its sound was not the special sound that moved hearts. It was a king's son who spoke. The others said, "Such people always think they are smarter than everyone else." They let him go alone. As he walked, he felt more and more of the quiet forest. He still heard the small bell that the others liked. Sometimes, when the wind blew, he heard people singing at the candy seller's place. But the deep sound of the bell grew louder. It was like an organ was playing with it. The sound came from the left side, where the heart is. He heard a sound in the bushes. A small boy stood in front of the king's son. The boy wore wooden shoes and a short jacket. They knew each other. It was the boy who had to return his jacket and boots. He had done it and was now walking in his simple clothes. The bell's sound was so deep and strong that he had to go on. "We can go together," said the king's son. But the poor boy felt ashamed. He looked at his wooden shoes and pulled at his short sleeves. He said he might not walk fast enough. He also thought the bell was to the right, where beautiful things were. "But we will not meet there," said the king's son. He nodded to the poor boy. The poor boy went into the darkest part of the wood. Thorns tore his clothes and scratched his face, hands, and feet until they bled. The king's son got some scratches too. But the sun shone on his path. "We will follow him, for he was a good and strong young man." "I must find the bell," he said, "even if I go to the end of the world." Ugly monkeys sat in the trees and made faces. "Should we hit him?" they said. "He is a king's son." But he kept going, not sad. He went deeper into the wood. The most amazing flowers grew there. White lilies with red centers, blue tulips that shone in the wind, and apple trees with apples like big soap bubbles. Imagine how they sparkled. Around green fields where deer played, there were big oak and beech trees. If a tree's bark was broken, grass and climbing plants grew in the cracks. There were also calm lakes. White swans swam in them and flapped their wings. The king's son often stopped and listened. He thought the bell came from the deep lakes. But then he knew the sound came from farther away, deep in the forest. The sun set. The air glowed like fire. The woods were very, very quiet. He knelt down and sang his evening prayer. He said, "I cannot find what I look for. The sun is going down, and night is coming. A dark, dark night. But maybe I can see the red sun one more time, before it goes away completely. I will climb that rock." He held onto climbing plants and tree roots. He climbed wet stones where snakes moved and frogs croaked. He reached the top before the sun was gone. It was a beautiful sight from there. The sea, the big, wonderful sea, with its waves hitting the shore, was in front of him. And where the sea and sky met, the sun stood like a big, bright altar. It was all melted together in bright colors. The wood and the sea sang a happy song. His heart sang too. All nature was a big holy church. The trees and clouds were the pillars. Flowers and grass were the soft carpet. The sky was the big dome. The red colors faded as the sun went away. But a million stars lit up. A million lamps shone. The king's son put his arms out to the sky, wood, and sea. At that moment, coming from a path to the right, appeared the poor boy in his wooden shoes and jacket. He had been confirmed with the king's son. He had followed his own path and arrived at the same time as the king's son. They ran to each other. They stood hand in hand in the big church of nature and poetry. Above them, the invisible, holy bell sounded. Blessed spirits floated around them and sang a joyful hallelujah.